Welcome to the Fergus Falls Business Spotlight Podcast, the show that takes a deep dive into local businesses and the individuals that run our community. To guide you along the way, here's your host, Jacob Bittner.
Welcome in, everybody. Welcome to the Fergus Falls Business Spotlight. It is a good opportunity for me to announce that going forward, mainly because I want to be able to have conversations like the one we're going to have today, the Fergus Falls Business Spotlight is looking at a rebranding. So there will be a new name for the podcast eventually that is a little bit more broad and inclusive for conversations like this, because I love talking Fergus businesses. That was the whole point of me starting this podcast, was to get on here and just reconnect with our business community. And I think since I started having these conversations, I realized that it's just really fun to hear people's stories. And it's just really, really fun to uncover people's stories. So kind of going forward, I'm just kind of looking to take more of a broad approach with the show, keep a business focus, interview mainly business owners locally here. But when something comes up and I get an opportunity to interview somebody who has a really awesome story, I want this podcast to be a home for that too. So welcome in Jeff Bosek to the show today. I'm very excited. I got in contact with you through your nephew, Cameron.
Yes, my nephew, yep.
So Cameron Rittenauer, for those of you who know that name or know him in town here, I'll get him on eventually. He's a businessman. He's as entrepreneurial as they come. So he will be on the show eventually. But he was somebody that I don't know if I want to call him a mentor, but somebody that I definitely looked up to when I was a kid as a soccer goalie, because he was the goalie and I learned a lot from him, kind of shadowing him and watching him grow up. So he connected us. You're his uncle. You actually live in Alexandria.
Yes.
But you were kind enough to come over here to Fergus today for an interview. So thank you very much for coming in.
Yes, you're welcome. Yeah, I live by Carlos, so it's not really that far of a drive to here.
Carlos, beautiful place out there in Carlos. I love Carlos State Park. But Jeff is not just any scout sniper in the Marines. Jeff was one of the first boots on the ground deployed in Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
So we're going to get into a conversation about Marines and Marine scout sniping and Desert Scopes, the book he wrote. And so to preface this episode, I want to be able to talk about stuff openly, right? I want to be able to talk about topics that may be uncomfortable for some people to hear if it comes up. And if maybe that's not a direction you want to go, I just know that as we get into your book, and I don't know how tasteful it is for everyone, it might not be something for everyone. I've heard from Cameron that it actually is a pretty tasteful book.
I would say it's like PG-13. I mean, I've never been a cusser or swearer, so there's really none of that in the book, and it's pretty mellow. I'm a pretty mellow guy myself. Okay. So when I'm talking, it's when I got out of the service, I told people stories about all of my missions that I had, and of course they were PG stories. And then when I started writing the book, I just wrote it like that because there's no reason to use foul language or really be too descriptive of things that are going on, so they get the point in the book.
Good.
What's going
on.
Hey,
then you know what? Maybe that preface is not needed, but I just like to give that to people. We're going to be having a conversation about war and about people who have experienced, you've gone through a crazy, significant period of U.S. history that you were a part of here.
Yes.
And so I'm excited to uncover that story. We're going to get into that. We're going to kind of get into, talk about the history of the Marines a little bit, and just mainly talk about your book and what's inside this book and what the people can get out of it if they want to read Desert Scopes.
Yeah.
So,
it's there's quite a few sniper books out there. One thing good about snipers, it's easy to follow them later in life because all snipers and fighter pilots are tracked. So they always keep records of who's the number one, fighter pilots, the number one snipers and stuff like that.
What do you mean by that tracked? Like they keep a ranking of that?
Yeah, they do. It's unfortunate, but they do. So like I was like the number one sniper in the division for 3 years. So they like have tests and things like that. But then when war comes, they rank you against other snipers, how many kills you have and stuff like that, which is stuff you don't want, but it's kind of bragging rights by the intelligence officers that my snipers are better than your snipers and our snipers are better than anyone else in the world.
Wow.
So they like to promote that kind of stuff, which almost got me killed once, which is in the book. I made the top 100 assassination list in the Philippines, and they actually did try to kill me when I was there.
Whoa.
I didn't realize that till I got back to the States, and I got called to the intelligence office, and he told me I got made a list, and I said, well, where was I on the list? And he said, well, I'm not going to tell you that, but you were closer to 1 in 100 because they don't try to assassinate the guys in the bottom of the list. So it was funny. I sent a letter home to my brother and said, don't tell Mom I made the top 100 assassination in the Philippines. And when my mom died, there that letter was in her dresser drawer. So so obviously she knew what was going on and stuff, So
Well, that's a good preview to what we're going to get into. I'm excited.
Right.
I'm excited to hear your story. We're going to get into a lot of that stuff. It would behoove me if I didn't ask you. If I'm sitting here interviewing a former Marine Scout sniper,
yes,
I have to ask, and I'm not going to right now. We're going to tease the people, and they're going to have to come later in the episode. But we're going to talk about. I'm going to pick your brain about the Trump assassination attempt,
okay.
And I want to hear the breakdown from a former Scout Sniper Marine and
Right.
what. Just feels a little sketchy to me. I'm curious, but I'll get your thoughts on that later. So. Before we get going, though, I do have to give a shout out to my sponsors every episode here. You're already well into this Grandma's Garden rhubarb sour, huh?
It tastes okay.
It tastes okay.
Yep.
That's a great endorsement. Grandma's Garden. I spend a lot of time in Outstate Brewing. This is a beer I don't drink a lot of off the tap. I just fall in love with so many other options, but it's such a unique beer. So I'm going to crack it open here. The description given by Outstate here is Grandma Alice's beautiful tan lines are evidence of her hard work picking fresh veggies from her garden. The Grandma's Garden Sour is full of bright citrusy flavors, and Granny's Garden Grandma's Garden Sour is full of bright citrusy flavors and Grandma's Garden grown rhubarb. Enjoy the fruits of her labor and grab yourself a Grandma's Garden Rhubarb Sour. So, Grandma's Garden Rhubarb Sour, this is a amber sour, which makes it unique. Most sours don't have that amber finish to it. So, it is probably one of the most unique sours I've ever tasted. Might not appeal to everybody, but if you like rhubarb, this is your beer. So, it is 5% ABV and, minimal IBU, 10% bitterness. Not super tart either. What do you think? Sour? Not too sour?
Yeah, I thought it tasted fine. Yeah, I'm no connoisseur of beer. So
You said you were a Scotch guy?
No, more like pirate rum.
A rum guy. Yeah. There you go. Well, we always appreciate Outstate. Appreciate them every episode. Got to give a shout out to a new sponsor coming on board for August, Atlas Outdoor Services. So shout out Atlas. You'll start hearing more about them. And then, of course, Stumbino's, Victor Lundine's, Lakes Area Grow Co., and Elks Point Bar and Grill. So, all right, Jeff, let's start with your early years and talk about childhood and just sort of set the tone for how you were raised and your parents a little bit.
Oh, perfect. So I'm the youngest of 6 kids. So you'd think I'd be a little spoiled, but complete opposite. All 6 of us are 7 years apart. So it was 2 girls and then 4 boys. So it was basically all-star wrestling every night. And being the youngest one, I probably got a lot of scars from all that stuff. So we went hunting with my dad, of course, bear hunting and deer hunting, elk hunting and stuff. So he taught me, the basics of hunting and stuff and how to shoot the rifle. So I had mixed feelings on hunting. I enjoyed the hunting, but I didn't really care for the actual killing of the animal. But I understood that the animal, when I eat it, becomes part of me, so it lives on through me. So I wasn't actually killing the animal and stuff. But I, for the most part, enjoyed the hunting. I enjoyed shooting the rifles and stuff like that. So then when I got to be 18, then just on a whim, I was going to sign up for the Air Force, and I was going to fly Harrier jets. And then was talking to the Air Force guys, and then my buddy was going to the Marines. He said, they don't have Harrier jets in the Air Force. That's for the Marines, you know. So then I called the Marine recruiter, and he said, you can't fly in Harrier jets. You got to go to, college for 4 years before you'd even be considered for that. And I said, well, what'd Rambo do? And he's like, oh, he was in the infantry, you know. So then,
you want to fly a plane? Can't fly a plane? Well, what did Rambo do?
Yeah, I'll do what Rambo did. So then I signed up, and
wait, Rambo, real person?
No, Rambo the show. You know?
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, that's not based off of a real life character.
I'm not sure. I mean, there was an original movie years and years ago that was called that I think was loosely based on that. I've been trying to find the show forever, but I haven't been able to find it. But
so the college for becoming a pilot deterred you into infantry, and then you settled in the Marines.
Well, I work construction, so at the end of the year, I didn't feel comfortable going on unemployment. So I was like, I'll sign up for the Marine Corps, and they had an opening that kind of came up, so I got to immediately go within just a couple months. So it was a pretty fast thing, and I originally signed up for 6 years because I figured my dad was in Korea, and so I figured he did 1 year. He was in for 2 years, so 1 year for him and my mom, and I figured I'd do 6 years, one year for everyone in my family. So I would, do their time in the service, So I originally signed up for 6 years, and when I stepped off the plane and started getting yelled at the airport, I was like, I made the biggest mistake of my life, It's like, oh man, what's going on
So
here?
you enlisted in the Marine Corps then first, and went straight into, is it BUDS? Is that what it is or not?
No.
Different.
You just go to boot camp.
Or just boot camp.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. You're talking about the Navy SEALs.
Oh, Navy SEALs. Yeah, that's a different thing. Yep, Navy SEALs.
Yeah, so I was in the special operations. So I was in the MUSOC, 11th MUSOC,
Right.
13th MUSOC. That's Marine Expeditionary Unit Special Operations Capable. So when we were in the United States, we kind of worked with the recon Marines. It would be 2 sniper teams, recon Marines. We did, I don't want to get too much detail on this. I vaguely hit it in the book. But, we were fighting the war on drugs then. So we would help like the SWAT teams and stuff like that. And in those days when I was in, people hated the military. So
what year was that in the country?
Well, when I became a sniper, that would be like 88, January 88. So
the war on drugs would have been, you would have been in that war around that same time?
Well, the war on drugs is like, we're going
ago.
to, places where there's bad people and trying to, stop them from shipping drugs over the United States. And I won't get into it, but this is...
You don't want to end up on another list.
Well, fighting the war on drugs is more dangerous than fighting a war.
Absolutely.
Because these guys, there's no surrender. These guys will kill you and skin you alive and go after your family. Mm-hmm. So you really have to be a pretty solid guy that you're willing to sacrifice your life. I mean, that's why you carry a 9mm is not to defend yourself. It's just to shoot yourself. And when you go on, special operations missions to assassinate somebody, because I actually had missions to assassinate Saddam Hussein when I first got in the war. So it talks about that. I talk about that in pretty good detail. But that's one of the things that pretty much every country follows that rule of the land and law.
That's
warfare.
like the Geneva Convention.
Yes.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Is it?
So snipers don't fall underneath the Geneva Convention. So if they capture us, they can do whatever they want because we're considered murderers, not, when you fight people and you shoot at them, you're just killing them, and that's okay. But when you put crosshairs on someone and target one specific person, that's considered murder. So a lot of countries don't have snipers because of that reason. So because of that, we're not under the Geneva Convention.
So they could torture you, do whatever they want if they catch you guys with no recourse.
That's why you don't surrender. You shoot yourself because you're not going to tolerate that. So, but when we went on missions, to be in the special operations, you really couldn't have, we wouldn't wear dog tags or ID cards. You wore like a hog's tooth, which is a bullet. And it talks about that in the book and stuff, why we do that kind of stuff. But we couldn't have tattoos that said USMC or America, because if we were out on a mission and we shot ourselves, then that they couldn't prove we were an American, so they couldn't use that against the United States. That why are these Americans here in this place and stuff? We did have two, which is I think is okay to say now, but like when we graduated sniper school, they would brand 2 S's in your arm, and that was the identification mark that you were a scout sniper.
You got a brand?
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. It's
like horse iron brand?
Yeah, right.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it's a sign of the German SS, because that's where we, the snipers kind of really took a lot of pride in the World War I German snipers. They were extremely deadly. So we kind of went off of their training and their manuals to make the Marine Corps snipers and kind of followed in their footsteps. So,
interesting. I want to back up a little bit.
Yep.
Talk about basic training. Talk about that process of starting up.
Oh, perfect. So basic training I went pretty well. I mean, I had boxed for 9 years of my life, so I was in pretty good shape, and so the physical aspects of it were pretty simple. The mental stuff of getting yelled at all the time was like, okay. I worked for my dad. My dad was one of the hardest people I've ever worked for in my life. He was a very tough boss, yelled a lot, but was a really nice dad. So he knew how to separate, and that was very important for me later in life, to know how to separate your job from your home life. And so when I was in boot camp, we went to the rifle range, and there's 350 guys on the rifle range, and I ended up qualifying 7th best out of everybody that was there, and it was great because it was sunny for the first 4 days of shooting, and then on qualifying day it was downpouring rain, and I really was clicking on for windage and everything else, and it was hitting the targets, and I'm like, okay, this is all working the way it's supposed to work, so that went really well for me, and then after that was infantry school. And I was a dragon gunner. Didn't care for that too much. You carry a big missile around to shoot tanks. So I did that for that next year and a half. And then I got promoted. And then I got my team. And then I got kind of the dirt bags in the unit to start with. And so right away we had to do an 18-mile combat march. And it's full military gear. And we were going, and we had one guy that was pretty out of shape. He was 26 years old, and he was falling back. And, he had been used to getting on the truck. If you fall back, you get on the truck, and you just ride the rest of the thing. But if you lose more than 3% of your people, you have to redo it, and they just get harder all the time. And I'm a pretty gung-ho guy. I'm like, you don't quit. You keep going. So I had his rifle and had his pack, and I'm yelling at this guy and pushing him. And he was saying, I want to get on the truck. I'm like, you ain't getting on the truck, or there's a block to go. And he fell down. And I grabbed his gear, and I'm dragging him the last block. And then the corpsman came. And this is important to what happens in the future. But the corpsman came and said, just leave him here. I'll take care of him. Well, the guy ended up dying. And so I was like, okay, my life is over. I just killed someone in my team. And I'm going to get busted, and this is it. I'm going to get busted back down. I'm never going to get promoted again and stuff.
This was during training?
Yeah, that's training.
He died during training?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, we're training to get shipped overseas. So you have steps where you do a 10-mile combat march, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 24, and you got to progress, and you got to pass all these skills before your unit is okay to go shipped overseas, the whole unit. To a part of the MUSOC, and so it was really weird because nobody talked to me about it. No one mentioned his name again. It was like he was just gone. No one even talked about the guy. And then all of a sudden I get called to the first sergeant's office and stuff, and I thought, here we go, I'm busted. And I get in there, and they lay open, had my papers in there, my information and stuff, and they're like, oh, we see you're really a good shooter and stuff here, and you've shot high expert multiple times here. Would you consider joining the sniper unit? And I'm like, yeah, okay. So instead of like getting busted, they were like almost promoting me to send me to the sniper unit. And I'd seen these guys around, And in the book, I say they always look really mad and kind of growly guys, because, you're going out in town and they're training all the time and stuff. But I knew when I got in that unit that these guys would be in good shape. And they were when I first got to the unit. The only thing I thought was funny so I linked up with the scouts and snipers, the state platoon, surveillance target acquisition teams in mountain warfare training. And I got there, and I was just part of a team, and my team leader broke his leg, and I took over the team right away. And then I made all these link ups. I never once screwed up to link up, hundreds of guys with other guys and stuff. So you're on a 30-day trial period, and I aced the 30-day trial period. And shortly after that, they sent me to sniper school. Okay. And then I was graduating number one in the class, but I was struggling with my stalking part of it. That's concealment, where you move up and then you take a shot at a guy and then you identify what he's doing and you get points of how good you do. And it's kind of weird. I was feeling a lot of resistance, so I had a pretty good sixth sense by that point already. And in the book, I talk about this Jedi training stuff that I have. And that part's real. The book,
Jedi. So let's talk about Jedi. I read that too, and I was like, "What is this gimmick they're talking about here?"
No. I mean,
Jedi training.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me finish this story, and then I'll talk about
absolutely.
it. So, I called home on Sundays. You'd have off, and I called home. I said, "Mom," I said, "Are you praying for me to fail this school?" And she got kind of quiet, and she said, "Yeah, why?" And I said, "Because I can feel this resistance. I should be doing well in this part of it. I don't know why. I can just feel this resistance. I'm getting caught." And sure enough, like that following Tuesday, we had another stock, and I really had to do well. Otherwise, I would have failed out. And they're looking for anything to fail you out of sniper school. And I'm stalking, and all of a sudden, I could see eyes in my head, cat's eyes. And when I seen those eyes, I melted in the ground. And when they disappeared, I would keep moving again. And I never got caught again after that. So to me, it was like every time someone was looking at me, I could sense it, and I could see the eyes, and then I would just wait, and then I would move on. And it talks about that happened to me several times in the book. Now, as a disclaimer, I always tell people, listen, I cannot verify that someone was actually looking at me when I seen them cat's eyes. I'm just telling you that when that happened, I never got caught again. So now back to the Jedi stuff.
Yeah.
So we after I'd passed sniper school and stuff, shortly after that, I was asked the top snipers were asked throughout the division to go to a special class on how to sleep for 20 minutes, and it would equal 8 hours of sleep. And you could do this over a few days, and then you had to sleep for 8 hours. So when we were on missions, we could just do this, get yourself in REM sleep for 20 minutes, wake up and be awake for 23 and a half hours, and then do it again and again and again over a long period of time, So what it was always funny because I won't get any great detail about this stuff. I vaguely hit on this stuff in the book, but we'd always go to a Holiday Inn, and it was always like a college professor or something. Now, each one of these college professors that talked to us didn't know that we had a different class with another college professor, another one, and another one. So each one was specific about something. About one talked about energy, and one talked about time, how it's irrelevant, and even with the Bible, it's like it's kind of irrelevant. There's no such thing as time and space, so you can't say all this happened in 7 days. I mean, there's based on what, Earth time? I mean, the universe is massive. So it talked about how everything that's going to happen has already happened. So you should be able to perceive things because they've already happened. So whether you take this path or this path, it's already happened.
This
so
was military, like psychological military training?
Yeah, it was through civilians. So, I mean, so every couple months we would have this Jedi training. So the snipers, there's like 80 snipers in the Marine Corps at a time because it's a hard school to pass. Out of those 80, there's like 16 that are in the special operations. Normally there's not. They can't get enough guys to get in the units. And then there was like 4 that were in this Jedi training program. And I'm sure it was just a short program because the general gets in there and says, let's do this special training. And then after a few years, the next general comes in and says, don't waste any more money on that program and stuff. But anyways, so the reason I got picked was, so they had 8 snipers come in. We went in this Holiday Inn, and it was a middle-aged lady there. We all laid down on the floor, heads down, and she had us all cross our ankles laying on the floor. And she had a young man there that was her helper, and he was on the end too and crossed his legs. And then she talked to us for a while, and then she started a tape, and it was like, okay, you're walking through the grass, and your hands, you get a hot air balloon, you float up, and you go over a river, and you land, and it's very descriptive to get you in this REM sleep. Well, I could kind of sense her walking around the room, and then at one point she kicked me really hard in the ankle, and so I thought, okay, well, no big deal. I know, I understand the training, and I can do this. So then after we woke up, then she talked to us a little bit about the training. And then she said, oh, I kicked someone in the leg. Who felt me kicking the leg? And I raised my hand with 3 other guys. And then she said, okay, you guys stay here. The other 4 you guys can go back to your units. And then afterwards, when they left, she says, congratulations, you guys are going to be in a new program here. We call it the Jedi Sniper program, because I never touched you. She said, I kicked my helper on the end, and if you could perceive that, then you have an ability to sense your surroundings, and that's what we're looking at. And we want to build on this. So I kind of told her, I said, well, you kicked me pretty hard, and she goes, no, I didn't. I kicked him pretty light, but you were on the end, and it's like grabbing electric wire as it goes through people, it kind of gains power. So it's like, so when it got to you, it really was building up power. You were sensing it going through the people, and by the time it hit you, it had more power and stuff. So he said, we're going to try to build on those senses. So when you go out, when you graduate sniper school, it's like you're just told you're going to die, because there's no peace for snipers. I got combat pay for 4 years, and normally you only are a sniper for 2 years. And I was a sniper for the first 2 years. And then I went to the base scuba locker because I was a diver and I could have stayed there. But then they asked me to come back and do another 2-year rotation, which I was really happy to do that.
So that I don't know, I don't want to get too off track here, but the intuition, that intuitive nature is, have you ever taken like a personality, do they give you like a personality test to highlight that stuff as well? Because I assume that's just a intuition. Some people have way stronger intuition than
everybody.
Others,
Everybody has something. But it's how much it's developed. And I always say, it's kind of like, if you take, 100 athletes, all the same age, same build, everything, they're identical basically, and you're training them to run. Okay. Some of these people are going to be great at running because of their physical abilities, even though they're all trained the same. And it's same with like your sixth sense and all this stuff. Some people are just more in tune with what's going on in the universe than other people. But like when I got out, I was a pretty spooky guy. So I was like a deer during deer hunting season. I could not be around people for many years. I would shake when I was around people because I was absorbing, too much information. And, now I'm pretty happy that I just ignore the stuff, which most people do. You might think something we ignore. The last time I really had something that was beneficial was I was driving down the road and I got behind this truck and I thought, I just had this bad feeling someone was going to fly out of the truck and hit my vehicle. So I backed up and then a semi passed on the other side of the road. Something flew off the semi, hit the front hood of my truck, hit my windshield, blew like a softball size hole in my windshield and went over the top. And if I had been, that 50 feet farther ahead, it would have came right through the windshield and probably killed me. Wow. So it's not like people are like, well, why don't you use it to win the lottery? I'm like, it doesn't work that way.
Interesting.
So, but as you get older, you tend to ignore the stuff. And I'm getting older and like anything, your skills get worse as you get older and stuff. And so, but it was something else back then. And it was pretty cool just to understand time and energy and like how things are connected, because grass is living, flowers are living. If you yell at a flower, it'll die. It's a proven fact. So
really?
Yes. So if someone's like walking a long ways away from you, they're stepping on the grass, that energy goes down into the roots are all connected. That energy comes over to you, comes up, you can kind of sense what's going on, even though it's a long ways away and stuff like that. So.
Whoa. Yeah, I guess I can feel it. I've had my moments with trees where I feel just connected, like getting more connected to nature than our lives. Okay. I got to keep us moving here because we're a half hour in and I don't really care how long the interview goes. Typically I do about an hour long interview, but I'm not going to, cut this conversation off. I want to be able to get through all of the content.
They got to read the book.
They got to read the book. They're going to have to read the book if they want it all. But So before we get into your time after Jedi training, I assume if we're looking at the timeline, we must be tracking late 80s right now, early 90s, like right before Desert Shield.
Yes.
You kind of got through this program.
Earlier, I mean, I'd been a sniper in special operations for over 3 years before that happened. So I
80s, by your first few years you got through this training. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just touch on the Marine Corps and the Scout Sniper kind of history a little bit.
Yep.
So the Marine Corps was actually founded in 1775.
Ton Tavern, Philadelphia, in a bar.
In a bar?
Yes.
Dang, during the American Revolution.
Yeah, I mean, that's where they started the Marine Corps in a Ton Tavern bar.
So was that, do you know, as far as branches of the military goes, was that?
Well, we're part of the Navy.
The Navy.
And people don't understand that. So like the Army, only like 20% of people are in the infantry. In the Marine Corps, almost everyone's in the infantry because we're supported by the Navy. So when, people sign up to be a Navy corpsman, it's like, that's probably the most dangerous job because you're with the Marines, So the Navy corpsmen, the Army has medics, we have Navy corpsmen and stuff like that. So the Navy takes care of our paperwork and all that stuff. The only downside is the Navy doesn't like to give the Marines much money. So boot camp for the Marine Corps is a really long time. I don't know how it is now, but when I was when you got out of boot camp, you were broke because they make the Marines pay for all their uniforms and all their stuff, where everyone else gets all their stuff for free. So when you get out, you're broke, Yeah.
Interesting. So you had, obviously, war existed, like the American Revolution, they were probably muzzle loading, right?
Yes.
During then, and the technology of the rifle really advanced, and it looks like here, at least they're saying, you didn't really see the concept of scout snipers emerging until World War II. Yeah,
I mean, the problem with like everything, everyone hates snipers. Everyone does, because we have a lot of power, and because we go through multiple schools, and when you go out with a company, they have like 5 radios, and we get 1, and the officers do not like that in training purposes. Once war starts, you're everybody's best friend because you have a lot of power. I mean, because you have guys that their job is just to call in naval gunfire, or it's their job to call in airstrikes, or it's their call in artillery. A Marine sniper goes out, he calls in naval gunfire, artillery, airstrikes. He calls in evacs. He calls in, I go out, find information, come back and say, this is how you need to attack this position.
The shooting is a minimal part of that job.
Yeah,
the actual firing of the rifle is, that's a big part of your job. But
when you fire the rifle, you give yourself away. Right. So if I can call in an airstrike on someone, that's a lot better thing to do. We fire the rifle for intimidation things and to scare the enemy and stuff. And granted, we're going after key targets and stuff, but I go over some good examples in the book of how I use that skill, where I could have killed 3 people, instead I do 1, because if I kill all 3 of them, there's no stories being told. So you want that fear of the enemy to be scared to death of you and what your abilities are and stuff.
I'm trying to think of that movie. Is it like Behind Enemy Lines? Is that about a scout sniper?
I'm not sure. I've never watched that show, I guess.
I think it was a World War II movie. But yeah, so I guess it must have been the technology of the rifle must have advanced at that point to allow for more distance shooting or scoping.
The
scope, maybe?
Yeah, the scope, John Unero, that's our scope, was invented by John Unero in World War I. So we use a scope, and with our scope, we have like mil dots in it and stuff like that. And so you can judge distances using the mil dots. So if you're someone that's 5'9" and a scout sniper's coming after you, you're pretty much dead. If you're shorter or taller, your chances of survival go up, because we're using the average height of this man being 5'9". So when we go to different countries, we have to figure out what's the average height of the man, recalculate our formulas. So when it comes to being a sniper, you really have to be good at math, because everything's based on mathematical formulas. How strong is the wind blowing? What's the heat mirage is doing? How's the bullet travel across terrain? How much humidity, raisers lower the round, 1 inch for every 100 yards for 20 degrees. What's the temperature? All that stuff comes into play. So when you zero, like when you get in the desert, we zero the rifle, you write everything down, and then 3-4 weeks later, when you're going to make a shot, you got to go look back and see what's different now than when I zeroed it. Okay, I have to click on this and click on this and click on this to get to a 0. Now I can click up to my 700-800 yards and stuff.
And that's all math happening in your head.
Well, back
in the 90s for sure. Now it's probably the technology.
Well, they got rangefinders and everything. Like, oh my gosh, I wish I had that stuff. It's like so. One thing good about my book from a lot of things is like I'm telling the story. So I wrote it, and so it's not an author's rewriting it, trying to make the story better than what it really was, and extremely exaggerating stuff. So my book is fiction, but it's really pretty close to the way things happen. But I got to make sure I can deny things if I'm asked, and it would be very hurtful to me if someone said I don't believe this or believe this, and now I can just say, well, I don't care what you believe, you believe what you want. I mean, I don't care, but so it's pretty good stuff in there. It talks about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So we really obviously saw scout snipers were like vital in Vietnam.
Oh yeah.
And then really, I mean, the Desert Shield, Desert Storm mission was kind of that's sort of a peak in the, I mean, I think a lot of stuff now, I don't want to say a peak, but the drone is changing things.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, the drone is changing everything. The being able to just fly a drone at somebody's head and blow, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we would still be okay with that because like my desert ghillie suit, when I built it, it had like infrared technology built into the suit that I had. So if you were flying a drone with like, heat seeking, you wouldn't be able to see me.
Wow.
So when I was out in the desert moving, it'd be pretty hard to see me. So most of the time, we would move at night, and so I spent at the start of the book. That's one thing good too is I'm in multiple environments in the book. So we travel all over the place, and so I'm in the jungles, and it talks about the misery of that, losing your toenails and your skin falling off and just being miserable, going to the desert, and now you're thirsty and dry. But to me it was a better environment. Just that there's no place to eat or nothing in the jungle. There's food everywhere, so you can survive for long periods of time. But and then different shooting. One time I'm shooting the jungle, in the desert, then out of a boat, and out of helicopters, and you just don't you don't get that information in most sniper books. That the diversity of a special operations sniper is it's not like you see in TV. And actually, one of the best chapters in the book that people really like the most wasn't a sniper mission. No, it's a scouting mission.
Scouting mission.
Yeah, but it's very intense, and it's I probably dream of that mission more than any other dreams that
I'm going to ask you about that once we get into your time. I'll ask you about that chapter for sure. The scouting mission. Don't let me forget to ask about that scouting mission. I just kind of want to set the tone for like the world, the global conflict, like what was happening in the world at the time leading up to Operation. It was Desert Shield first, right? So you had the Iran-Iraq war from 1980 to 1988. So you joined. You said in 88 you were.
I joined. I would join the Marines in 85.
In 85,
and I became a sniper at the very. Was in sniper school in the end of 87.
Okay.
So
So through
Christmas,
the early part of your military career, where were you deployed right away after basic training?
I mean, I
like in the mid 80s.
Yeah, right away. I mean, I as soon as I got out of boot camp, within months, I was deployed with the 13th MUSOC, and that's really a prize.
And where'd you guys go? Sorry, you can tell about the MUSOC. I want to.
Well, that's a prize unit. Everyone wants to be in the MUSOC because they get the most medals and they do the most stuff during peacetime.
Because this was peacetime.
Yes,
peacetime for the United States up until 1990 to really 91.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that first time I went overseas, I was just a dragon gunner, and so we didn't do anything. We just would go to all these different countries, and we'd do training for a couple of days while we're there, and then we get to go out in town for 3 days. Then we get on ship, and you go someplace else. So, like I was, over the 3 times I was on the MUSOCs, I went to the Philippines like 15 times, Singapore 3 times, Malaysia 3 times, Hong Kong 3 times, Thailand, Australia twice, Alaska once, and of course Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Korea, Japan. I mean, all over the place. And then we would go to some other place I won't mention, but them were the main toury places. So, like when we went someplace, like we would actually go out on real missions, and the other guys would kind of train, and then they would go out in town. So we didn't get to go out in town quite as much because we were doing like real missions. So
to tie it all together, though, this peacetime, mid-'80s leading up to that conflict, was that sort of the period of time with the war on drugs?
Yeah, so President Reagan said, hey, we want to fight the war on drugs. So then that became a priority for us. And so we would...
So there was conflict there. I mean, it was peacetime, but there was conflict.
Yeah. I won't get into detail, but something really bad happened to our one of our units that was deployed before ours, and I mean, it was really bad what they did. They captured a scout team, and it didn't go well for those guys. So then our government decided, it's too dangerous for us to be deployed in these jungles in these different countries. So then they decided that we would like help SWAT guys and stuff in the United States. I'll just say that.
Okay, gotcha. So obviously things took a turn in the Middle East in it looks like August 2nd, 1990, Iraq invades Kuwait.
Yeah.
So that was and that was met by resistance. It wasn't much of a split between the world at the time. I mean, the UN and everyone was pretty much against the invasion of Kuwait.
Right.
That wasn't,
and we should be. It's I know people think different things about different countries, but it doesn't really matter if this country's super corrupt or this country's really corrupt. Who we help, it's about stopping aggression. It should always be about that, because when you don't stop aggression, that aggression will just keep building until it's thrown in your face, and now you've really made a problem for yourself.
So that led to the global response by the United Nations, Resolution 660, which basically, demanded that Iraq immediately withdraw, which they did not, followed by economic sanctions imposed on Iraq. Basically, from August 2nd, 1990 to, it looks like, or actually, it would have been August of 1990 all the way to January 17th of 91. That was we tried. The world tried. It sounded like the UN, the sanctions, they did everything that they should have done, or tried to do everything peacefully to resolve this. And it basically needed to happen. So August 7th, 1990 to January 16th, 1991, that was Operation Desert Shield.
Yeah.
So you were one of the first deployed out there.
We were in the Philippines at the time, and that's how the book starts out, with me in the Philippines, hunting the MPA, New People's Army, making sure that they wouldn't try to take over the government there. They tried a few times. So we went on lots of missions for that. But so I got out of my one mission, and then they're like, we got to go load up on ships and take off. So then we're steaming across to get there. So we're the first Marine unit there. I mean, I think the 82nd Airborne paratroop in there or something. But we were the first Marine unit there. So then we set up a defense, there. We did several ship takedowns. We actually captured the first piece of land during the war, Meriden Island. And I was a little disappointed because they rose the Kuwaiti flag and not the American flag, and there wasn't nobody from Kuwait there. It was all Marines, and then we did, some different deception operations as a unit, and then captured Flock Island, and I say more rescued them, but we were going to spearhead. The president wanted the war over very quickly. Mm-hmm. So if the war had lasted more than 8 days, then we were going to we were linked up with another MUSOC, and we were going to hit the east side of Kuwait. And pretty barbaric, but it's typical Marine style stuff that we were going in 3 waves, and that's the chapter that is about the scouting mission was for this.
Let's talk about that scouting mission.
Well, the scouting mission was we're going to hit this beach, 20,000 Marines. So three waves of 5,000, and all the officers and everyone comes
And
afterwards.
this was during Desert Shield. We hadn't entered the Desert Storm.
No. We're in Desert Storm now.
At this point, we are.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I've done several missions by now.
Okay.
Actually,
I want to get to the scouting mission, but I want to fill in that Desert Shield to Desert Storm.
well, this is the scouting mission, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is kind of that transition into it.
Okay, yeah. No, I mean, so prior to this, we were doing ship takedowns, stopping people.
Peaceful.
Well, it didn't end up peaceful.
Nothing peaceful. But that period, it was kind of a 6-month period there where they were waiting to see if this pressure they were putting in Iran or on Iraq was going to be enough to get them to withdraw.
This ain't in the book, but so we go there, we do our stuff. Now we go, it's boring because nothing's going on. They need us elsewhere. So we went back to the Philippines for the elections and stuff, did more operations there. Then we went back right before the ground war started. Then we did the ship takedown operations and stuff. And then it got serious. When we were first there, we went out in the desert, shot a little bit in practice. It was more R&R for us than anything. But then when we got back, then we were really getting into the missions then.
Gotcha.
And then the ground war started, and we couldn't do a lot because the bombing was so fierce. So they didn't want to send us in and then have us get hit by friendly fire, which I had been hit by friendly fire once before. I was on a different mission someplace else, and I was supposed to get extracted at 8 in the morning. Didn't happen, which was normal. At 11 o'clock, the back of my hair started standing up, and I yelled at my partner, "We got to get off this hill right now! We got to get off this hill." And we got to the bottom of the hill, and the hair jet come ours and bombed our position, knocked us off our feet, gave us kind of concussion. So now I kind of blame that on not remembering people from high school. It's like I don't remember who you are because I got a little concussion. But that was standard operating procedure. That when we got pulled out of a position, we had to hide. That they would bomb it to try to destroy any evidence of us being there and stuff. But yeah, somehow I knew it was coming. Otherwise, we'd have been killed for sure. I mean, it was perfect bombing run by that pilot. I give him a lot of credit. But then I got a radio and we got extracted out. But so because of that, they didn't want us getting deployed. But after it started slowing down a little bit, then they're like, okay, let's get you out there to get some information and make sure that they're not observing our enemy lines because it's our job to deny them. And we went on a few missions, nothing happened, and then something does happen in the book, and I handled it very, very well.
Is that the scouting mission? Is this a scouting mission or is this a different?
This is a sniper mission, sniper mission.
So talk about that. You said a bunch of Marines were set to deploy onto a.
Okay, so So anyways, I had to go. We're going to hit this beach. Now you can't just send 20,000 Marines there and not know what's there. So.
20,000 Marines?
Yeah, we practiced this landing. It took about 28 minutes to get all the guys on the beach.
I'm trying to think of like a football stadium.
Think of Saving Private Ryan. That's what we were going to do.
Yep. Okay.
So, anyways, this is probably the most intense. Like I said, this is the thing I have the worst dreams about at home. So I went out at night with a little boat. They dropped me off by myself, and I probed up the lines. Then I had to cut through concertina wire. I'll make it fast, but I probed through a landmine field, observed the enemy, where there's thousands of them right in front of me. My nearest troops are miles away. All I had was a camera and the 9mm to shoot myself, and observed the lines. Then went back out, and then they came and picked me back up, and we went back, and I was pretty emotional when they picked me up because I'd been awake for a couple of days and was very stressed out. And then we got back, and I kind of told them it looked like a pretty soft target compared to what we thought. A lot of the machine gun nests were just pipes on sandbags, so there wasn't as much. But what they thought, the first wave would go in, and they would take the first so many feet to the first piece of concertina wire, and they figured that was about 75% casualties from that wave. The second wave would go through the first wave, run through the landmine fields, blowing up the landmines with just the bodies running through the landmine field. And they would stop at the second piece of concertina wire. And the third wave would come through, pick up the survivors of the first two waves. We would assault through the city, and the war would be over in 24 hours. Or we would have Kuwait City back in 24 hours. And they figured there'd be 5,000 dead guys in the first hour of fighting. And it was pretty serious because on ship, we would get news things once in a while on the TV, you know, a little TV in your berthing hole in the ship. And they were showing digging trenches for our unit so they could just bury the bodies because we're going to have so many mass casualties. So when we were getting ready for that mission, they had us all get a combat number, and we had to write it on your belt. And mine was 1326, which I thought was a great number because it's 13 MUSOC, 13's a bad number, and it was 13 doubled. I thought that was just bad luck is good luck because I always remember these guys going into Normandy and they're like, "Oh, I want to be on that Higgins boat 777," and a bomb hit in the middle, killed everyone on board. So it's like I wanted 13. It was a good number for me. So I thought that was pretty good. So originally I was on wave 1, then I got moved back to wave 3 because they didn't want to have the snipers get wiped out because we would kind of move ahead of the guys, shoot machine gun nests and stuff, and just keep supporting the guys as they move through the city and stuff. You know, so that was our job. And there was some, you know, some peace in knowing that you would be killed with a lot of your fellow Marines, your brothers and stuff. It was pretty peaceful knowing that.
That was the plan?
That would have happened.
Would have happened.
Yeah, but the ground war only lasted 4 days. I mean, if it had went 6 or more days, we were going to do that.
Desert Storm ground war, you said it only lasted a few days.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm interested here because it says Operation Desert Storm officially here, January 17th, 1991 to February 28th, 1991. But the actual ground war was a small portion of that.
Yeah, I mean, they're bombing, but by the time the troops moved in, that was, that was very short. When they started moving, that was just a few days, which was kind of lucky on our part because, they had, we'd have lost most of the men probably just from running through the landmine field, really, So, but it's like, they always say, well, how come Marines fight so hard? I'm like, because there's only one way to go forward. You can't go backwards. You're going into an ocean. You're going to get gunned down. You got to keep moving forward.
So that planning phase was like probably a relief then, the fact that didn't have to go down.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to do that. Nobody wanted to probably go through that.
Well, I wanted the war to be over quickly.
Absolutely.
So the faster we do this, we might lose a lot of men, but we're saving a lot of other people, And I was, it's kind of sad because in my mentality, I'm like, send the boys home and let the men fight this out because I was more than willing to die multiple times prior to that. But when we were getting ready to go on that, and that's the first time some of these guys were, like when they went to Flocka or Meriden Island, it's the first time they were given live ammo and stuff. And I could just see the fear on these guys' faces. And I'm like, this is happening all over the place, this fear. So let's get this over with so these guys can go home that are scared,
Yeah, I can only imagine nobody wants conflict. Nobody wants war. That's not,
especially as you get older.
That's not anything anyone wants. And it's like, I think it's really interesting, from somebody who hasn't been involved in the military, but I know people who have been. It's like, from an outsider's perspective, people look at the military people and they think that this is what they want. This is they're in it for the fight, but it's like that. They're probably more anti-war or anti-conflict than anybody else on the planet.
Well, and I really, as I get older, I realize the stupidity of war. I understand it's necessary, but I can't go to a concert at school and watch the young men up there thinking if we were in a war, how many of these men would die in a year from now and we'd be dead, and how sad that really is. And you have to peak your life and to get gunned down. It just seems such a waste. And for most wars, what do we really accomplish at the end? It's the same way it was when we started. So it really is. It's amazing. Some people seem really gung ho about it. And anytime I hear, and I'm sorry to say this, but anytime I hear some stupid person say we need to have a civil war in the United States, I'm like, are you the stupidest person on the planet? Do you understand what that means? It means your women and children will be killed first. That's what you want? Do you want to look like Ukraine in a few months? Don't ever talk that way. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. You have no idea what you're talking about. Yep. You don't ever wish that upon another American to get hundreds of innocent people killed for nothing. Yeah. You know, it's just, I hate when people say stupid things like that.
As far as in the scope of history goes, though, looking at what I kind of unpacked about Desert Storm, Desert Shield, like that was kind of sort of I don't want to say a perfect example of a necessary conflict.
Yeah. Oh yeah, perfect.
But a perfect example of like conflict, sanctions. This is where we're supposed to do it. You didn't follow. You're not following these. You're not adhering to these sanctions. So this is a result of that. We're getting it over quick, and it's done, and Kuwait's liberated. Yep. So, you want to talk about the aftermath or the fallout after Desert?
The thing is
Desert Shield.
Yeah, I mean, it's always easy for a military to go against the military. So we always are very successful in that. But you're never going to be successful. It doesn't matter how great your military is trained when you're going a military against rebels that blend into the ground and blend into civilians, and you have no idea who you're fighting. It's pretty hard to win at something like that.
And that's where we went after. I mean, the Middle East is still in that era of.
Right. One day they're shaking your hand, and at night they're shooting at you. You can't. Who do you fight? You know, that's when snipers really are effective in those situations, where they're really necessary because you go out at night and you wait until these people pop their heads up and take care of them. But them are tough things, and it's hard for people who are like, why can't we win? It's like there's no one to fight. That's why you can't win. I mean, how. You just keep sending people into something that's different every day. I mean, the guys that are your friends are also your enemies.
Right.
So that's tricky.
As far as your active duty or your service after 91, or after, I mean, I assume did you get to go home afterwards for a little while?
Yeah. I mean, that was my time up.
Okay.
So after you can only be a sniper for 2 years. And when I first got to my unit, it was really funny because I walked into the unit and all these guys had gray hair. And I'm like, what's wrong with this picture? And after 4 years, I had gray hair. It's very stressful. And I don't know.
If they're telling you to sleep for 20 minutes, I can only imagine how that ages somebody.
Right. I mean, you don't eat, you don't sleep, and stuff like that. So I mean, it's pretty hard on your body and stuff. But that was my time up. So I could never go back to the sniper unit again. It's not like the Army and Navy, and that's why you don't see like Marine snipers get like a lot of confirmed kills, because once you get well trained, then you become a teacher, and or you have to. I could go back to a line unit and then just in the grunts, and that's like being, playing professional baseball and get sent back to the minors. I could not go back down to the minors. So I had to be a drill instructor recruiter, and I'm like, I'm out. I did my job. I was very sad to get out. Not sad, but I didn't want someone else to go through the misery that I had went through. And I just thought, I'll keep going so someone else has none. But I had a really good staff sergeant that really put it to perspective for me. He said, I know you don't want to leave, because I was the #1 sniper, been for a long time. And he's like, when you leave, it's going to be like dropping a rock in a bucket of water. It's going to cause some ripples, but it'll level off. Someone else will take your place. And that made perfect sense to me. It really put my mind at ease to come home, So, then I came home, started a deer ranch and raised deer and stuff.
Are you doing that now then?
I did it for a long time, and then the state got smart and said, we don't want you raising them anymore, and you got a year to get rid of them, which was really mean, because there was like 9 of us. They run us out of business. So I lost everything I had worked for my whole life, but I wasn't bitter, because I'm like, it's the right decision. These are European red deer. They're not native to the United States. But I was like, why don't you just buy us out? There's 9 of us. I mean, you guys pay all these turkey guys and all these cattle guys, and you can't buy out 9 farmers. You're just going to run us out of business, But it's like, whatever. I mean,
so your career, just to like the Cliff Notes version of your career after military.
Well, I work construction and I do commercial diving, and the commercial diving is far and in between. But
commercial diving, like rescue diving, or
no, I do like vehicle recoveries,
Okay.
repairs. I mean, like 1 year I made $2,800 for the whole year. And the next year I made $17,000 in 3 days working for the steel pipeline. So I bought my wife a new car. But that's extremely dangerous too. So as I'm getting older, I'm 57 now, and it's like, I do want to live to be old now and enjoy my life. But it's kind of funny because I think I told you, like I slept on the floor for 5 years after I got out. The bed was too soft. I just couldn't do that. I slept with an M14 next to my bed because I used an M14 shooting out of helicopters because the scope, you can't use that. And it was for like a fox or a coyote if they were getting into the pen, But I hunted for 2 years and then I never hunted again for 10 years or something. And until my kids came along and my daughter was 10, and then I got her into skiing and in the biathlon, which is skiing.
she's
and shooting.
picking up. That's cool. That's cool.
Oh,
You told me you went into the deep story about your
Yeah.
daughter. That's really cool. So she's like it's a biathlon. Is that what they call it?
So she
Biathlete?
skis and shoots. She made the Youth Olympics when she was 17, went to France and raced, was the top shooter there out of the boys and girls, tied with another girl for the top shooter. She's been the top shooter in the United States. I ended up, loving shooting again. Otherwise, before I'd shoot and I'd smell the gunpowder, it really triggered bad things in my brain. And now when I smell the gunpowder, it's like, I just love the smell of gunpowder now because it's very a positive thing for me. I built a nice range. So I train like the elite kids that are better at it, really give them some good little Jedi training and some aspects on how to shoot better. And my daughter, when she was 17 at the national race, I had, two girls there, and out of all the 180 people, pro women and men, my daughter was the number one shooter and the other girl was third best shooter. So, she just raced last weekend for the region championships, won. She's trying to make the semi-pros now, and we'll see where that goes. I mean, she's finishing up college now, so that's a priority. But
As far as, and I don't want to poke too into it. You spoke on kind of what you wanted to speak on. I feel like adjustment to society after you mentioned you slept on the floor for a long time.
Yeah.
Just a lot of stuff. I can only imagine that adjustment period. Did you keep in contact? Were you in contact with your unit or your team? Like, did you keep in contact with people, or what is that adjustment period like? Because I know some people, I've worked with some people who, a scout sniper who was in, Afghanistan more recently, but that adjustment to society is different for everybody.
Yeah. So I kind of rebelled against the military in general. I mean, just from contacting people, but later on we get together almost every year. I just, like 5 weeks ago, I went to Virginia for a sniper reunion, and it's really fun talking to the guys. And this was probably one of the better ones emotionally for me, meeting with the guys, because a time I went before I come back and I just told my wife to stay away from me for a few days because I spent too much time with these guys, and we went over too much about different missions, and you come back and it's like, I don't really cuss, but in your mind you're thinking, F this and F that, it's like, it doesn't matter, whining Americans, blah, 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 and was kind of back in that mindset of just being a very cold-hearted person, But now the last time I went there was kind of fun because some of the wives were there, and it was good talking to the wives to hear that they got to hit their husbands too sometimes in the middle of the night, and their husbands have bad dreams too, and it just made me feel a little better about myself, that okay, I'm not a weak person. I mean, these guys I consider extremely tough, strong men, and they're crying too. So then you feel a little better that, okay, I guess I'm not as wussy as I think. Because when you get out, I mean, you're very, your emotions are extremely beat down. So if someone tells you a joke and you go, haha, if this guy just got out of the military, he's extremely laughing. And, but then I didn't realize this. I thought things would get better as you get older, but it doesn't. It actually gets worse. Most suicides are when people are in their 50s and stuff. And, because then your emotions start coming out, and like my son now is 19, and I'm kind of hoping they make a movie about the book, and then he can play me in the book because he's pretty ripped and better looking and smarter than I am. So it would be pretty cool. But yeah, when you see that, it's like, God, he's my age. At his age, I'd already killed someone. And it's tough to see that, and you start thinking back, and was anything I did important? It wasn't. But I'm really happy about the drug stuff. I mean, you're really making a difference. So I would get kind of mad at someone that was smoking some pot or something. It was like, I'm not hurting no one doing this. I'm like, you idiot. You know how many people died for you to have that pot right now that you're smoking? It's not hurting anyone. It's hurting plenty of people, So now it's legal, so whatever. But,
Now we decided it's not worth fighting over that one particularly.
Right. We'll go down a different road.
It ain't worth fighting over that one,
Yeah.
I don't think. But well, I know it's a cliche that gets thrown around a lot, but after sitting down and talking with you, I genuinely thank you for your service and that sacrifice.
Yep.
And anybody who has gone through that and is, a part of our society now and has scars from their time. I thank you guys for being willing to step up and, in this particular case, defend a part of the world that needed liberation and there's a lot of that stuff. And I think there's a lot of unnecessary conflict that has happened throughout the world. I think there's way too many examples of unnecessary conflict that's continuing to happen now.
Oh yeah, I'm hoping someday we'll get more of a level playing with people. I mean, it's slowly working that way. Where Europe made one currency and we're becoming one language. Most people
one
speak
currency.
Yeah, most people speak English now when you go overseas and stuff, and so I mean that's always a positive thing. And at some point, we will probably get kind of one religion because most I went to the Buddha temples and all this stuff. All religions are basically the same.
Scary. That's kind of scary.
Well,
stuff,
they're kind of the
though.
same. I mean, they're basically all the same. It's the leadership that corrupts religions. It's not the religion itself, So because almost all religions talk about peace and everything, but the leaders are the ones saying you need to kill people, So
Yeah, interesting. That's a conversation. I had a religious professor of religious studies on, and we didn't get too into that.
Yeah.
But a lot of that, we did talk actually a lot about the roots of religion and how there are just striking similarities.
Right.
There's so many striking similarities, and what we consider to be polarizing differences are really differences in translations and potentially potentially not much different than like how we would translate between languages, So yeah, interesting stuff. We're not going to get too into religion.
Okay, no, we don't want to make people mad. Yeah, that's what my dad always said. You don't ever talk about politics, religion, or how much money you make, and you get along with people, and that's very true.
Yeah. Well, I want to get into picking your brain about this Trump assassination attempt, but real quick, that'll be like we'll cap the show off with the Trump assassination attempt. But
I'll tell you how it should have been done.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we won't go. All right. Yeah. Well, the book though, you mentioned a movie potentially. Obviously, everybody who writes a book, the hope is a movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, this book is about me, so it's been 3 months. I've sold 100 copies. I'm happy with that.
This is only it's only been out for 3 months.
Well, I wrote it in 95 and I had it out for 2 months then, and I pulled it off the market. And just because people would come out to my ranch, want pictures of me and my dog, and there was a lot of weird people. And I thought this ain't worth 28 cents a book. And I had to go drive down to the cities and bring it to stores and really try to sell it. And then my name was different in the original book because I changed everyone's names and things to protect everyone. And then it always bothered me that my name was wrong. So I rewrote it this last year, added 2 chapters that I left out. And one was a helicopter landing thing, setting up a gale system, land some Marines out in the desert. It's a really good story, but I just thought that was a scout job, not a sniper job, but I was with the scout team. And it's a good story because in that chapter I talk about making the top 100 assassination list and how that went down. And then I added a little bit of the Jedi training and that kind of stuff. So then I re-released it in April and it's on Amazon Books. If you looked it up, you got to look up books, because if you look up desert scopes, you're gonna get a bunch of rifle scopes. So you got to go to Amazon, look up books, and look up desert scopes, and then it will come up.
Stuff. Yeah, if you I'll get a link to the book, the Amazon book, in the podcast description, so anyone can just click on the description.
That'd be awesome.
And buy this book. You know, check out the book. So
yeah, because my dream was that I would sell at least enough to build a nice Nordic ski biathlon center, and that would be my retirement job, is just to train kids on shooting and for biathlon, because I've actually, there'll be quite a few people that will be in the Olympics that I actually helped train at one point or another with shooting.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah,
that's really cool. Yeah, we had a guy. Win Roberts.
Yes,
he's a Fergus.
Yes,
So I'll have to track down Win Roberts and get him on the podcast at some point.
he's a little older. I was with the younger ones, but
yeah. Awesome. Well, let's cap this off. Let's talk about this Trump assassination attempt here.
Yeah. So like, I was a surgical shooter. That's what I was called. So I was specific. I wouldn't just shoot to kill. I would shoot to if I was doing a takedown, I knew the deflection of glass and how that would all work, and to hit the person just right, or to shoot a kneecap out of someone to make them drop, or to shoot a hostage holding a gun to someone, or a special place you can shoot them where it just cuts the brainstem off and they won't even pull the trigger. If you shoot them between the eyes, they'll jerk the trigger and kill the hostage. So I was specific into that kind of stuff. So to see that, it's like, yeah, this guy wasn't well trained or anything like that, and I'm not sure. I mean, they're still investigating if the bullet hit the glass and deflected, and a piece of shrapnel hit him in the ear, or the bullet actually went through his ear and he turned his head. I don't know. We'll let the investigation, but you would never be on a rooftop like that to begin with. That is crazy. I mean, ideally, if you were really going to do a mission like that and you were serious about getting away with it, you would scope it out ahead of time, build a nice hide farther back, 400 or 500 yards in the trees. There's no way they would see you back there. You would, kayak up on some nearby river, do the mission, go back out, throw everything in the water, kayak back down, find some local's name, and if the police come and talk to you, you'd be like, "Well, I'm Joe Smuck. I live right down the road," and you got to have a way to get out of it. But we'd always say, I mean, realistically, the only thing that the governments follow is the law line, wherefore you can't assassinate leaders of countries, because it really is easy. If you have actual well-trained snipers that really don't care if they live or die, no way possible you could stop him from getting anyone they wanted. And it's a piece of cake, So, because you can't stop him. Like, for me, I would have an escape plan, but if they really didn't care about that, it would be pretty easy to do that. So, like, when I had two missions to assassinate Saddam Hussein, one I thought was pretty suicidal. They're in the book in pretty good detail, but the other one was a pretty safe mission. But again, that handgun was there strictly to shoot myself if I was going to get captured. So they figured they'd drop 8 of us in there to get him, and then 3 of us would get killed, and whoever got him would get like a $5,000 bonus. We trained for a little while, and then they said, "Hey, we're not doing this because he's considered a leader of the country." When we first got there, he was kind of a military leader, so it's like, okay, he's fair game. But then they're like, "No, he really is the leader of the country, so we can't do it."
Huh? Can we talk about how bizarre it is and how it just the gross negligence that seems to have been displayed by the Secret Service in the failure to law. I mean, so we're talking about a roof. The shot was from 130 yards.
Yeah, that's a piece of cake.
You could make that with iron sights. That's
right.
an iron sights shot.
Yes, no problem.
And so why, I think it's very interesting, the fallout, is just, as of this recording here, a few days ago, I think yesterday or the day before, the head of Secret Service stepped down after this hearing where she basically didn't answer any questions about all the sketchy stuff that happened. Right. How was this allowed to happen? Why was this allowed to happen? Why wasn't there a counter sniper on that roof? Right. Why wasn't,
I was amazed how fast that counter sniper did get him, though. That was pretty fast.
8 shots later. Was it that fast?
But I mean, they were shooting pretty quickly.
Off.
Yeah,
he got 8 shots off.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess so. From the diagram, looking at the diagram, it looked like there was kind of 2 counter snipers set up on the roofs behind the stage, and the one that would have been closest to that building that he shot from was actually blocked by a tree. There was like a tree line of sight. So, from my understanding, and I don't know, I just know the YouTube warrior version of it, but
I mean, he was clinking the rounds off fairly quickly. So you got to swing over there, locate it, and those scopes them guys use are like more powerful than one I used. So it's like, it's hard to find. That roof was big. And when you're trying to find one little person on that roof, it's pretty complicated to do it. That's why when I shot out of helicopters, we would not use a scope because you could not keep the guy in the scope. So then we would go to open sights and use M14s. That's where I really kind of fell in love with that rifle.
And that was my thought too, was like, there's videos of people 10 minutes before the attack with cell phones out saying, look at that guy with a gun up there. That guy's got a gun. And you have a counter sniper team that doesn't see that. I mean,
yeah, I don't know what was going on there.
I don't know. It just smells conspiracy to me.
Yeah. Who knows? At one time, I really had a real good mission. I wish it had happened. We were supposed to go to Korea for the Olympics, and they were going to put the special operations snipers up in the bleachers for the Olympics. And of course, that mission got canceled because the other governments said that's a military aggression if the Americans put snipers up in the bleachers and stuff for security. But I was like, crap, I got to watch the Olympics for free up in the stands, So. But yeah, I had, we went to Burma in '88 when the government collapsed, and that was the thing is I got the officer that was in charge of me at the time was in Lebanon, so he really understood the value of snipers. And so all the Marines had weapons hold to get the Americans out of that country. And he said the snipers had weapons free. So he said, if we get shot at, he said, 1 shot's okay, maybe 2. There better not be a 3rd. You better have this guy dead, because we had weapons free. But it's like, okay, it takes a while to locate a target, and but that's what they do, because you can't have a guy just open up with a machine gun in a crowd because one guy's shooting a gun. So because the people that are pro-American. So, but there's always some lunatics no matter where you go on the road. So, yeah.
Well, Jeff, I really appreciated you coming in today and having this chat, man. Do you feel like there's anything else? Obviously, you got to read the book, because we didn't even hardly scrape on all the stories and stuff that are inside that book. It's not very long. It's not a super thick book here. I mean, it looks like it's not a super long read.
Yep, it's an easy read. So it's 148 pages, and so I do jump around a little bit in the book because the war was obviously pretty short, So it talks about, I'm always on some mission, then I think back to a prior mission that was in the, when I was part of the 11th MUSOC as a sniper the first time around, and different missions like that. And then it goes back, to the war, and then, so a little bit of jumping around. But so some of the stuff did take place, but different countries, and I didn't want to jump around too much. So, so I always say the book's like 85% exactly what happened, and then 10% that was right, but wasn't in a different country or something.
Are you on Audible? Is there an audio version of this book?
No, people tell me to do that.
You got to do it.
Can't. No way, because if I try to read chapter 4, I'm bawling my head
Could you
off,
have somebody else read it? Would you ever have somebody else read the book for you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I only sold 100 books, so I don't think there's that much of a. I mean, if I'm selling thousands, then maybe I would put it on audio or something.
I think that's how you sell thousands.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that's the key. That's.
But if someone else wanted to read it or something, that would be fine if someone wanted to do that. But I mean,
Chapter 4 is the one though. Chapter 4
gets me. That really gets me. That I can't get through it without getting really choked up. I just can't do it.
Sorry, you mind me asking what is in chapter 4?
Well, it talks about shooting, someone and stuff, and it's how you feel.
Yep.
And then when I talk about how I'm feeling, it's like, okay, I still feel exactly the same way today. And then chapter 7, that's infiltrating, through the thing. It's very emotional for me in the standpoint of being all alone and nobody's there but me, and everyone wants to kill me. That's within, 100 miles. There's nobody on my side here, So that one I do a lot of thinking about what if scenarios. What if these guys had seen me walking down the beach? How would I have engaged them and stuff? So lots of dreams about that kind of stuff, But dreams are designed to help train you. So I don't get too worked up. It's good for my soul, I always say, when I have bad dreams, because it's not your way to torture you. It's your way to train you. So if it ever happens again, you're ready for it, even though hopefully it will never happen again. So.
Well, again, Jeff, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'll get Cameron on. I'll get your nephew on, and we'll talk about other stuff. He's got all kinds of.
He'll tell you about coming over to my house and eating Cheerios with water.
Cheerios with water. That's what you were serving.
Yeah, for breakfast, Cheerios with water, and stuff. And yeah, he learned a lot from being with me for a few days and stuff. So.
Awesome. Well, look in the description for a link to the book. And thanks a lot, Jeff.
Yep, thanks.
I got lots of good episodes lined up for August, so stay tuned. Thank you to the sponsors: Atlas Outdoor Services, Outstate Brewing, Grandma's Garden Sour, Stumbino's, Victor Lundeen's, Lakes Area Grow Co., and Elks Point Bar and Grill. You guys are the best, and we'll be back with more of these.